Let's start by simply trying to access one of the items in our dictionary using its key. Over here, I could do something like this, where country codes, using the square brackets, I can try to access them by their index or by their key. So in this case, if I do get me the country code with US, we get back the United States. Similarly, I could do print country codes for EG and we get Egypt. So what if I try to do print country codes where the country code here is IN? If I hit enter, I get back a key error, basically saying we do not have any item with the key IN in our data set. So before I tell you how we can include that in our dictionary, let's look into a safer way to try to access items from our dictionaries. If I use the get method by doing print country codes, but instead of using the square brackets, I'm going to use the get method and provide the key that I'm looking for, which in this case was IN. And if I hit enter, instead of getting back a key error, we are getting the value none. We could also provide a default value such that if there is nothing found with that key, we want you to return that value instead. So I could do something like this: code hasn't been defined. Now, because I'm using my single quotes, I cannot use the single quotes inside of my string, so let me do double quotes instead. Now, if I try to print that out, instead of getting back whatever the value of IN is, we are getting back code has not been defined. Well, in that case, let's go ahead and define that. So if I do country codes IN, I can actually assign it a value, and in that case, that is India. And now if I go ahead and print country codes, and let's do the get method, get the key of IN, we should get back India. And if we try to print out the entirety of our dictionary, we get all of our previously defined countries as well as India, which we have just added right now. We could also try to update a value in our dictionary. So let's say I have added another one, country codes, and I've created DE, and I made a typo when I tried to type in Germany, and I stored that. Now if I print country codes, obviously I have the country with a typo, but I could go ahead and correct it the same way I was able to add it by doing country codes with the key of DE, and we want to set that to Germany. Now if I save that or run the cell, print country codes, we were able to update the value over here. Now if we wanted to update the key of an item in a dictionary, that is a little bit different. We would have to remove that item from the dictionary altogether and then replace it with whatever the correct value is. So with that, let's actually talk about how do we remove a pair or how do we remove an item from our dictionary. Let's say in our country codes here, I created GP, or let me just call it GA for now, because that's going to be the thing that I'm going to try to fix. And we set the value for it to Japan. If I print out what my country codes are at this moment, we will have all those countries, including Japan, with the incorrect country code. So to go ahead and update that, we would actually have to delete. So we'll use the del keyword or delete keyword. So we'll delete country code with that code, and then we'll go ahead and correct our mistake by inserting it again with the correct country code. Now if we went ahead and printed country codes and run this, we get the key updated for Japan. Now if I try to delete that one more time, even though I've already removed it using the GA incorrect country code, and if I run that, I would get back the key error, basically saying there is nothing with that key existing in this dictionary right now. So similar to when we tried to access an item using the square brackets and that key did not exist in the dictionary and we got back that same error, similarly here, instead of the get method, we're going to use the pop method to remove an item from our dictionary. Now, if I try to remove it the first time, I'm going to do country codes.pop, and I'm going to provide whatever the key is, which in this case, it's YY. and we run that. If I try to run it one more time, well, keep in mind the pop method, one of the differences between the pop and the delete method, which we've used over here, is the fact that the pop method also returns whatever the value of what that key used to be in the dictionary. So if I try to run it one more time, we get back this error. So this is where I would need to actually provide a default value, basically saying, if you don't find anything with this value, I just want you to return that default number instead. So in this case, I'll just do NA or not applicable. So if I try to run this, here we go, we get back NA. And if I try to actually see what's in my country codes dictionary, that value should have been deleted at that point. So really two distinctions between the delete method here and the pop method. The first is that if this fails, it just fails and it throws out an error that will halt your program execution. While in the pop case, I could provide the default value that even if it doesn't find something, it just can continue executing my code gracefully without throwing an error that will stop the execution of whatever I'm doing. And then the second distinction is the fact that delete just deletes it, does nothing beyond that. However, the pop, if it does find something with that key, it will return the value. So you could actually capture whatever the value is in a variable if you were to use it for some other operation. Now, how do we actually check if our key exists in our dictionary or not? This is where we could use the in keyword. So I could do something like this, where I would print in country codes. And if it returns true, that means that it was able to find something with that key. So we're essentially looking for, does this key exist in this dictionary? Similarly, I could do print YY in country codes, and we should get back false. So this is how you would check if certain keys exist in your database or not. So we could do something like this, where I could check if BR in country codes, then I want you to print out Brazil exists in the dictionary, and instead of the backticks, let me use a regular double quotes. Otherwise, update this value in the dictionary with Brazil. So if I try to run this, and let's see what our country codes look like. Here we go, we get the updated country codes with the Brazil inserted. If I try to execute this cell one more time, and keep in mind that our country codes now contain Brazil, this is where we would get the Brazil exists in the dictionary. One more thing on removing items from a dictionary is the method pop item. The difference is between pop item and pop is that pop item does not receive a key. Instead, it removes whichever the latest inserted value or pair was. So if I do country codes dot pop item, it just removes the last item that was inserted, which was Brazil. If I print out our country codes, here we go, we get it without Brazil. Now, let me do the pop item one more time, which in this case, it should remove Japan, but I also want to capture this in a variable. So I could do, so because we were able to see that when you get an item, we get it as a tuple, we're able to unpack that into two variables. So we could get country code and name, and that would be country codes dot pop item. And now if I print out country codes, also print out the code itself of the last popped item and the name. Actually, let me just put that in a single formatted string. So the last removed item or removed code was code, and that was for the name. All right, so if I print this out, Here we go. The last removed item was Japan, or was GP, and that was for the country Japan. Now in the next video, we're going to talk about the different views that you get out of a dictionary and how you could iterate over the keys, over the values, or over the key value pair in your dictionary.